You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Iron Lady sings it. That makes it official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show for 16 years, 24 episodes. We bring you the Chris Voss Show with all the just amazing stuff and mindset we bring to the show. Today, we have another amazing young man on the show. We're going to get into some of the details with him, et cetera, et cetera. I believe is it Kerim Kfuri?
Kerim Kfuri.
Kerim Kfuri. There you go. Is joining us on the show. He's the president and CEO of the Atlas Network LLC, a global network LLC supply chain offering comprehensive end-to-end services, including consulting, product development, factory selection, mass production, oversight management, quality control, documentation, logistics, shipping, and storage. He's also a thought leader, public speaker, and author of Supply Chains Ups and Downs. He's also the founder of the Supply and Demand Show on YouTube. And additionally, he's held notable positions at NASD, Accenture, SEC, Friedman, Billings, Ramsey, and 24 Media. Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Very, very good. Thank you. And I apologize that you had to read all that. That's a lot of information.
There you go. Well, you've done a lot of stuff, so that's pretty freaking cool. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Sure, absolutely. So for any thought leadership or consulting, public speaking stuff, it's KerimKfuri.com. Mm-hmm. For any global supply chain solutions or assistance with manufacturing, it's theatlasnetwork.com. And then for the book, it's supplychainupsanddowns.com or on Amazon. The book is called Supply Chain Ups and Downs. Other than that, all the social media stuff, I've got presence in different places and trying to make this complicated industry more relatable. So I'm if you Google me and I'm around.
Google me. There you go.
You'll find it.
Kerim Kfuri. Do I have that correct?
Correct. Kerim Kfuri, right?
There you go. We've been rushing into the show, so we missed that part that I normally clarify. So the book Supply Chains Ups and Downs came out September 6th, 2024. Give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside this new book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this industry is super complicated, but it touches every single one of our lives every single day. And so I just felt like I wanted to write something that had a very kind of relatable voice for different people, consumers, business people, students who wanted to know and understand sort of the basics of the supply chain space, why it matters, and how it impacts our daily lives. And that's the goal. It's really a 150-page a book that is very digestible and very easy to consume. And that was the main purpose of it. Because, after the pandemic, the word supply chain was everywhere. People couldn't get toilet paper. They couldn't get what they needed when they went to the supermarket. They didn't know why. They didn't understand why. And there was a lot of misinformation around what it all really meant. And then fast forward to now, with everything having with tariffs and, globalization and what's happening with nearshoring and these concepts that we hear about every single day, many people still don't understand what these important topics are all about. So that's my focus and my goal when I'm not doing everything else that I do.
There you go. Yeah, supply chains really, I never thought I'd be fighting for toilet paper and it's kind of interesting what's going on now. What do you want to maybe give us an update on what you see going on right now? I know there's little to no ships headed our way, maybe some of the tariffs that are going on. What do you see in the near future for us with the supply chain tariff issues?
Yeah, we're walking a very fine line here, and it's really interesting because, tariffs were always put in place historically as an economic sanction to generate revenue and to create a balance of trade. But the problem is that we've gone so far with regards to globalization in the past 50 years and we're overly reliant upon these other global economies. And the only thing that we really make here in the United States is really good ideas that we then ship out to the rest of the world to manufacture. And our mentalities have shifted and changed in a way that nobody really wants to work in manufacturing anymore and so forth. But I've been to cities, I've been to Cleveland and other places where they are trying to bring back manufacturing, they are trying to bring back innovations. But we're talking about in a long runway, in a long time to come. We need to build infrastructure, we need to build resources and materials and output levels that can satisfy our consumer economy. So in the in-between, we've got this sort of real delicate, delicate mix here, because look at the second largest company in the United States, Amazon. 70% of the products that are bought and sold on Amazon come from China. Yeah. And so we're talking about, major disruptions to the ways that we buy and consume and do the things that we do every single day if we're cutting off these relationships with our largest trading partners, whether it's China or Canada for energy or Mexico for agricultural products. These are very difficult lines that we're walking down. And I believe that in the end of the day, it all gets resolved through compromise, some level of concessions and communications. And I think that that's where we're ultimately going to go to. I just hope that it's not going to be in a way that's so disruptive and destructive for the consumers at large. So we're in a balancing act right now. Everybody's trying to figure it all out. I talk a lot about the ways to do that, and businesses do that, and consumers do that. But yeah, it's choppy waters right now.
Yeah, and even if we get a settlement, it'll take us. It could take us a whole end of the year. Evidently, I hear, to get back to normal. Maybe it could take a long time, can't it?
Yeah, because what you have here is you've got broken trust.
Yeah.
And trust is hard to repair. It takes years sometimes, and negotiations and communications and so forth. There's a lot of trust issues right now, and on both ends. I mean, in China, for example, I was just there 4 weeks ago. I've got offices there, I've got teams there, and people there on the ground. Plus, I'm an ambassador of Alibaba.com, so I do a lot of work with them. But I also do a lot of work with the U.S. and consumers and manufacturing as well. I'm just in both worlds. And you had 16 million Chinese people, factory workers, that were taken to the streets, sort of protesting against what the government was doing, what the Chinese government was doing in this tit for tat situation, because they're all losing their jobs. Yeah. And here on our end, we've got products that are going to cost 3 and 4 and 5 times more than they ever could, and our salaries aren't going up by that much, month over month or year over year, to be able to sustain those major jolts to our wallet. So it's only a matter of time before people get a little bit frustrated with what's going on here, and businesses start going out of business, and people start losing jobs, and things get more expensive, and you go from inflation to recession and so on and so forth. But I hope that this idea of putting a pause on it for 90 days and trying to get the tariffs right, and then maybe a negotiated settlement, I really hope that these are going to be enough to appease all parties and have people still save face and let the economy continue to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, I just wish the whole thing would end. People don't understand how this works. I mean, there's people still laughing, thinking the whole thing's a joke, that interest rates are probably going to, the bond market crashes and continues to slide. But then, like, people don't see that it's coming, and I mean, I was watching a video today of a guy who, I think he's some sort of retailer, outdoor retailer or something, with 2,000 companies around the nation that depend on him for jobs. And they're probably going to have to file bankruptcy because they can't afford to pay the tariffs, and neither can their distributors.
That's right.
And they're like a 34-year-old company. And they're like, we've survived like all sorts of ups and downs. We can't survive this.
Yeah. And it's a real challenge. I mean, I have a big conversation or kind of discussion that I do. I did it just 2-3 weeks ago in Cleveland as a keynote speaker. And it was all about the 5 ways to sort of manage tariffs by businesses. And none of them are really great, but there are ways to sort of work through these tumultuous times, whether you're industry by industry or product by product. It's essentially absorption. Who's absorbing the tariff? Is it the supplier? Is it the brand? Is it an intermediary? Or is it the consumer? Or is it a blend of all of them? It's the deferral of the tariffs. Do you wait to ship, or do you bring it into U.S. bonded warehouses, and then kind of as you take goods out, you then pay the tariffs to sort of like segment that out? Terms and conditions. Do you get better payment terms with your suppliers? Changing your pricing, increasing costs, and reducing the cost of your production in order to offset the tariffs. And then finally, the last one is alternative supply chains, because it takes a lot of effort and time to rebuild a supply chain. You have to look at materials and output, resources, technology, and finally the costs. And that's not something you snap your fingers and it happens overnight. So there's a lot to be thought about with regards to this tariff market, how to sort of manage it and deal with it.
Yeah. And just even if it's sad that it takes so long for us to feel the effects. Like if people would have felt the inflation effects immediately when these tariffs were announced, there'd probably be such an uproar, right?
Sure.
And now we're just going to have this huge hole in our supply chain as it passes through this segment. And when people see the what they're going to be paying, they're going to be flipping shit. But by that time, it will take probably half a year to repair this thing, if not longer, and get back to normal.
And the reality of it is that it's not like the reason why it takes so long to come back to normal is because of the fact that nothing in the supply chain happens overnight.
Yeah.
Productions especially take 1-2 months to produce, then a month on the water. You're already talking about a 3-month situation to 4-month situation, just with basic things that are happening every day. So to come to a resolution and it not have an impact or be felt for 6 months, like you said, absolutely feasible. Absolutely something we could all expect. And that may make Christmas, 3 times more expensive this year. Whatever you're talking about.
Yeah, they're already talking about how that's going to be crazy expensive, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it's insane. Anyway, so what do you hope people come away with reading your book? What do you hope they learn?
Like I said, I really think that they get a basic understanding of why supply chain matters, because the reality of it is that this was the most non-sexy 2 words you could ever think of. As a matter of fact, even to now, when you say the word supply chain, most people just gloss over. They're just like, what are we talking about here? And I totally get it, because it's very logistical and it's technical and there's a lot of moving parts, and everyone just says, I just want my stuff when I need it. But the truth of the matter is that by us all having a basic level of understanding around what it is, why it matters, we can ourselves try to be in advance of any kind of disruptions that may occur and how it may impact our daily lives, whether it's that we need to stockpile some, or we need to, save for a rainy day, or we need to just assume that there's a tidal wave that's on its way to it, but our problem is that when we hear those words, we say, there's a tidal wave coming. We just still stand on the shore looking at it. And that's, that's not the way to really operate in our global economy, the way that we work, because we're part of a global economy these days. We're not just, we tend to only want to see what's happening in our neighborhood or our county or our city, maybe even our state, but our world doesn't operate that way anymore. Our world is a interplay of global networks that have to come together every single day to basically deliver the conveniences of the way that we live our life. And I try to deliver some of that message in the book.
Yeah. It's too bad we couldn't get somebody to read the book before they came with the tariffs and crap, but here we are.
Yeah. And I do some fun stuff too, on my social media channels, Instagram and all that. I talk about things like to make it more relatable, like, how Taylor Swift is like an amazing supply chain superhero, or like Mr. Beast, or just simple things like why bananas ship green, and just these simple ideas that people need to understand, whether it's regards to entertainment industry and consistency of shows and productions and logistics, or agricultural supply chain. There's so many facets of the supply chain that are important, whether it's, again, agricultural or fashion or entertainment or energy. Any of these things all have supply chain related and logistical components that we have to just somehow understand.
Yeah, and I've seen all these yokels that are just like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we could do this. Yeah, we'll be able to rebuild, everything manufacturing here in what, 5 minutes or something. You can just build factories and crap." You're just like, yeah, I'm not really sure you understand how things work. And the other thing is, there's so many moving parts, like little parts, right? Bolts and screws and this and that and the
Right.
other, and there's a lot that goes into this. It's not easy, right? Tell
Correct.
us.
You could have you could have the sheets of metal, right? But then
Mhm.
you don't have the screws to put them together.
Yeah.
And the screws are more important than the sheets of metal are. And that's the issue. The issue is that we here in the United States have very targeted and segmented areas of production, but we don't have holistic manufacturing. We don't have like all the parts. And
Mhm.
so in that way, we've only got part of the equation. We can only build part of the solution, and that doesn't service our, ever-growing consumer economy. That's the challenge, really.
Mhm. Yeah. So tell us about your YouTube channel. I gotta subscribe to all your channels so that I can get updates on what's going on. Do you address the current situations that's live going on? I guess with our everything.
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, the Supply and Demand Show is basically a really fun show that looks to, again, sort of demystify the supply chain space. It's me and my co-host Richard Crawford, who actually has an award-winning show called Leave No Trace on Amazon.
Oh, really?
And he sort of takes a really nice, like, fun, jovial approach. And we go on the road. We interview people at conferences. We started off by people that were primarily in the supply chain industry, but
Mhm.
now the most recent, let's say, 4 guests, I'll tell you, was the head of a group called White Desert that takes people to Antarctica,
Mhm.
and what that's like for the supply chain of being in a harsh environment and climate like that. A head of a major cigar company that's like
Mhm.
agricultural supply chain. A Scotch company, and then Damon John from Shark Tank, who I'm in partnership with on
Oh,
several
really?
projects. Yeah,
Wow.
right. That's actually me and him over there in
Oh,
that picture.
wow. That's
But
cool, man.
yeah, so basically, that was the last like 4 guests, and the intention and the idea is really to just kind of get outside of that industry and
Mhm.
see, and explain how the supply chain impacts different areas and walks of life. So we've done about, I think, 70 or 80 shows already. We've only been up for about a year and a half, let's call it, but it's fun. We enjoy doing it, and people tend to really like the approach. We do a little game show type of thing where it's like 3 questions in 5 minutes, and the last drop, who would you have coffee with, alive or dead, and just some little fun things as we go through segments. It's like a 15-minute show per episode, pretty
Wow.
short.
That's pretty freaking cool. It's pretty
Yeah,
freaking
it's fun.
cool. The so in do you do consulting, I guess, too? That's probably important. Maybe consulting and help companies understand the supply chain, how to put it together, and all that stuff. Is that part of the work that you do?
Yes, it is. I mean, the first step is knowing what the problem is.
Yeah.
So that definitely involves consulting. Where have you been? What are your nightmare stories? What have been your challenges and issues, whether they're quality or costs or efficiency or communication? What are the problems? And then
Hmm.
how can we basically be able to create a new supply chain solution to resolve those issues? So that
Hmm.
definitely is a part of it. I mean, obviously, if it's a newbie, an entrepreneur who just wakes up with an idea or a dream, there's a bit more extensive consulting to say, why do you want to make this product? Why does it make sense? Who else is doing it? Is it really a good idea the way that you dreamed it up? Or does it need to be 3 steps changed in order to be something that's viable? And so, yeah, there's definitely a good level of consulting and communication, either a new group that's never done anything before, or an existing population that has had some bumps in the road and needs to sort of streamline things. And then we pick it up from there into, all right, so here are the solutions. You're changing suppliers, you're changing this, you're making different modifications. But at first, definitely there's kind of a consulting process.
There you go. And so people can hire you. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are going to see this on YouTube and other places. They're gonna get familiar with it. LinkedIn, of course, is a big place for that. We always have like the CEO of CES show, Gary Shapiro on the show every year when
Mhm.
CES comes around. I imagine, there's a lot of vendors that go over there and back and forth. Do you ever do any lobbying or with Congress and stuff, or help them with Congress? Maybe I should put the two together. I don't know.
I
He
have
does a lot of
that would
lobbying.
be that would be great. That would be
Mhm.
absolutely wonderful to do that. No, I have yet to do that. And it's interesting because I grew up in the DC area. I'm from that area, and I've always been, the least political person there is. I've always been more economics focused and
Mhm.
less political in that way. But unfortunately slash fortunately, however you want to look at it, these two worlds are colliding a lot these days,
Yeah.
especially in global affairs and in tariffs and so on. So I envision myself doing probably more and more. I've been on TV a lot in the last 6 months on Fox and on CNBC and Yahoo Finance and Schwab and different groups talking about these issues and affairs. But I always tend to take a very economics-based approach because
Yeah.
you cut out half the population if you start talking politics too much.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides of all that. But it's kind of how our world works now. I mean, it's not simple. I grew up in the age of where you build something in Detroit and you work a job for 40 years or whatever it is, and then you're supposed to be able to retire, and everything's made in the USA and all that yada yada yada. I mean that used to be a cool thing, but people want cheap goods. They want good deals, and they want to they want to enjoy stuff. But yeah, I do you see prices going up with the like they're talking right now about how we're going to have what is it, higher prices for school. I saw a video of a guy, he was pointing out something he paid for at Walmart. And he's like, we just bought this last week at Walmart. It was like some toy, like some doll toy for kids and shit. And he's like, look at this thing. This thing has doubled in price since we bought it last week.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just wish, like, people still think it's a joke. They're just like, hey, do you think we're going to run out of toilet paper again? I suppose that's a good question. I heard that ways that works for us, maybe that's more local now where we won't run out of toilet paper, but maybe goods like for school supplies, Christmas, all that sort of jive, that's gonna become an issue. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to have impacts for sure. I don't think
Mhm.
everything's going to be necessarily resolved in the next, 5 to 6 months. It would be wonderful if it was, but I do think there's going to be some reverberating impacts. I mean, I even look at things like our price at the pump. When we
Mhm.
had this, kind of cutoff with Canada, where we're getting 60 to 70% of our, oil and gas reserves from. I mean, that could impact the cost per gallon by up to 60 or 70 cents. What about
Mhm.
people that are trying to drive around, to
Yeah.
get to work every day and things like that? I mean, these are real impacts that have nothing to do with holidays or seasonality. These are everyday type of staples that we need. Our
Yeah.
fuel, our gas, the same thing goes with Mexico, with the agricultural products that are coming from there that we go to the supermarket and you see a lot less of things, right? Or
Mhm.
the things you see, those avocados for Super Bowl are going to be 10 times as much, right?
Mhm.
And so we look at these things, and that's where I really see people are going to feel it more than anything else. I mean, they'll feel it with the seasonal purchases and the buying, but I think it's the daily impact that's going to really weigh on folks. And then the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Everybody's going to
Sure.
start talking, and then hopefully there's going to be some change.
Mhm. Yeah. Hopefully it's not too late. I mean, it's just we could have a really inflationary economy and all sorts of crazy shit going down, man.
Yeah,
Um
I know. It is not a joke. And the thing that's insane is that, speaking about, people thinking that it's a joke, when I was in
Mhm.
China and I asked, my teams and sort of factories that I met with and so forth, they thought that this was a joke. They thought in China it couldn't be real that the
Mhm.
United States wants to have, these high levels of tariffs, and second of all, that the United States wants to now be into manufacturing, because for them, they've seen the US as a consumer for so long. and they look at like manufacturing in sort of like a lower level. So they're like, so what are you saying, that Americans want to start picking up wrenches again? They want to start making things. It was so foreign to them because for the past 50 years, they basically have serviced the needs of the consumer economy of the United States. So, the optics around this are not exactly, streamlined either.
Yeah. It's I don't know, man. It's just so crazy because I understand these things. I understand finances, global supply chains, the bond market, M1, M2, Federal Reserve policy. I mean, this is like Venezuela level shit when it comes down to it. I watched when what's his face took over Venezuela and started this authoritarian shit. Who? Chavez. I always forget his name. But yeah, I watched him slowly take the world's largest, fourth richest country, oil rich, and fucking destroy it.
Right.
And now the people live on the Maduro diet. I guess thank God I learned how to do. I learned how to do whatchamacallit. So there's that. But yeah, it's crazy what's out there. And I don't think people realize the ramifications. It's taken us 4 years to finally reset from all the inflationary stuff for the supply chain in 2020 and all that sort of stuff. It's taken us 4 years.
Right.
And we finally just got out of it pretty much. And, and so now they're just like, now we're just restarting the cycle, only worse. I mean,
the reality of it is that I love the intention. I don't appreciate the approach.
Yeah, that's just chaotic.
The intention is great. Hey, listen, we want to make more things here. We want to support our economy. We want to be more domestic and insular. We want to look out for our best interests. We want a balance of trade. These are all good things that any government should be looking towards and so on and so forth, but in a phased-in approach, in an approach that isn't so disruptive that in the end, may not, one, give you the result you want, and two, ultimately in the end, who ends up paying that differential, that $1.2 trillion trade deficit? We do. We might as well call it a tariff tax by all intents and purposes, because that's kind of what it is until it's figured out. And so I think that the administration's mentality on what they're trying to do is very positive, and it's good in those ways, but it's the approach itself that I think is it's too erratic in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, there was a nice slow way to do it and say, hey, we're going to talk to Canada first and we're going to have a conversation, but slinging shit like monkeys in a zoo and, this sort of crap, in my opinion, is not the way to go. And then chaos. You can't plan with chaos. As a business, you got to plan stuff. And then if you're dealing with China, you got to deal with that. What is your thoughts on nearshoring? I mean, it'd be great if we could get, I don't understand why we just don't take over Mexico. Like, the CIA or I can't remember who it is, the FBI. So it's been on like a collapsible government list for like 25 years now, 30 years now or something. I mean, it's just people can do whatever the fuck they want down there, which is weird because, if you tried some of that shit up here, the FBI would definitely come down on you. Like,
yeah, I think the point is that nearshoring is always a great opportunity.
Yeah.
It's just that, one, you have to have the good relationships with those trade nations that are near to us, which we don't now, right? With Mexico and Canada. And two, outside of that, you need to make sure that whatever they're producing, that it actually is able to fulfill or sustain the consumer needs. So again, do they have the materials, the output, resources, technology, and finally the cost that makes sense? And they're close, right? Because is closer really better is the question. And in some things, in some industries and products, the answer is yes. And in others, it may not be so. So it's really product to product, industry to industry. But of course, anything that cuts down the transit time, anything that basically is in a similar time zone, a similar culture or language, or allows you to remove some levels of disruption that could occur, is always the most feasible way to do it. But it may not make sense for all products. But if it's always a good idea. These days, it's going to be a challenge, but it is a good idea.
So how can people on board with you on your website, get to know you better? It looks like you also talk philosophy and leadership. how can people get to know you more if they're interested in having you consult with them or work with them to help them through the things? How can they reach out to you as well in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my website is kerimkfuri.com for any of my sort of philosophy and leadership, public speaking things, some levels of personal consulting, book information, things like that. But outside of that, as you mentioned before, I am the CEO of a 20 plus year supply chain solutions company, which is theatlasnetwork.com. And that's where folks can come and ask all kinds of challenges, issues, disruptions they have. And we look to help them out and solve them through our network of almost 2,000 suppliers and doing this business for a long time now.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So give us a final pitch out to people as they go out, where they can onboard your .coms and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, it's kerimkfuri.com for any philosophy and leadership and personal assistance and getting to know me and the relatable voice of the supply chain, which is what I'm trying to do in that space. Mm-hmm. All of the social media stuff, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, YouTube for the supply and demand show, as we said, and for any global supply chain related issues or assistance and solutions is theatlasnetwork.com.
There you go. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Very insightful, and hopefully we, I don't know what we'll be doing next year, but we'll see. It frustrates me because we spent 3 to 4 years, and people just do not have the brains to concept all this, I guess. What was it? George Carlin said, think how dumb the average person is and realize 50% of them are dumber than that. Like, you just explaining the math of the supply chain, money policy, how the world works. And then just to see people laughing while the world burns, because they think it's funny, because it's like, yeah, it's really cool on the libs. And you're like, yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but you're the one getting, every day there's like all these people that are like online going, I didn't know that I would get screwed by Trump. I voted for him. And you're like, he told you what he's going to do. Project 2025, he all told you he was going to do tariffs and all that shit. And somehow they just thought that I guess the other party would burn and they wouldn't get anything on them. It's like, no, this is America. We're like a big lifeboat. If you start pounding holes in the thing, if we take on water, we all die.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I just hope that we come to a balanced
of
trade. I think that cooler heads will prevail. And in the end, it'll all balance its way out. I'm a supply chain optimist. I think that we will go towards those places. I think there's going to be a little bit of some bumps and some pain along the way, but we're going to get there. That's really that's how I think it's going to go from here.
Hold on to that life raft for the next little while. And I'll believe in your dream, because I want to believe it too. So there you go. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Monis, for tuning in. Go to wherever fine books are sold. Order up the book, Supply Chains, Ups and Downs, out September 6th. Understand how that world works. Damn it. I figured most of shit when I was 30. What is your people's problem already? It just makes me mental what's going on right now. And people just laughing about it. You're just like, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about Christmas. And I got a few family members, but I don't have to worry about school supplies. I think there's a huge shock coming with school supplies coming up. So There you go. And if you're watching this 10, 18 years that we've been on YouTube right now, it's 2025. So just so you know, it's May 2025. So if you're wondering, if you're living in the apocalypse, AI bots roam around you, Terminator-wise, trying to kill you, and you're listening to this podcast, you'll know what started it. Anyway, thanks for everyone tuning in. Go to goodreads.com for Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com for Chris Voss. Chris Voss one on the TikTok, all those crazy places on the internet. And I hope I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Be good.